तू चलता चल तू चलता चल तू चलता चल तू बढ़ता
Hello
चल
everyone,
तू
we are lucky to
बढ़ता
have Colonel
चल
Arun Anand as a guest today. He served with the elite 1st Para SF, which was the first Special Forces unit of the Indian Army. Indian youth has high respect for the Army. Para SF is at the pinnacle in the Army hierarchy. The Para Special Forces, they are greatly respected in the world, something like the US SEALs. The maroon beret and the Balidan insignia catch the imagination of the youth and inspire them. On behalf of No Frills Academy, I thank Colonel Arun for accepting our invite and agreeing to speak with us to inspire the youth. Welcome, sir. It's an honor to have you with us. I'm really excited to interview you, and so are the aspirants to know more about you and your experiences with the Para SF.
Thank you so much, Bhamini. And first of all, welcome to all of you. I'm highly indebted, firstly, to my course mate, Manimohan Nehru. We have spent some very exciting times together during our training days. And also to Bhamini and Shikhar, who are giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Just as a caveat, I left the army almost 15, 16 years back, rather 17 years back. So my knowledge might be a little archaic in that, but I'll still be able to share some of my experiences with you and hopefully try and motivate you that it's one of the finest outfit of a country, that is the armed forces. And the cherry on the cake is, of course, the special forces.
The Special Forces. I'm sure
Yeah.
your experience will be of a lot of value to all of us. So to start with, sir, I would like to ask, why did you join the Special Forces? What was your motivation to get into the Special Forces?
Okay. You want a truthful answer, or you want a answer which is sugar coated?
So definitely a truthful answer.
Well, honestly, I did my schooling from the Russian Indian Military College, which has produced a number of chiefs, both in the Indian Army and Air Force, as well as in the Pakistani armed forces. So our school dates back to 1922. So a mention of that was a must, to say that that's where my grooming started. I come from a family which has the armed forces in their blood, to the extent that my father's side, out of the 4 brothers, 2 were in the Air Force, and my father was participated in the 71 Ops from the Government of India as part of the Press Information Bureau. So they were one of the first ones to enter Bangladesh there. And he wore a uniform of a major, although being a pure civilian. My brother's also from the armed forces. He's from the Armored Corps. On my mother's side, she had 2 brothers, both in the forces. Their children are also in the forces. One of them happened to be an erstwhile air chief. That's Air Chief Marshal Satish Kumar Sareen. So the Fauji blood was always running in us, right? And thereafter, of course, clearing school and going on to NDA, and then the IMA. So it was, sorry, it was another very close friend of ours, Mani's and mine, who pushed me into taking part in something which is known as the Para Medal at the Indian Military Academy.
Okay.
I was a very poor runner. I hate running. And imagine I ended up being in a place where all you had to do was, running all the time. Anyway, so we took part in the Para Medal. I think I was probably one of the last ones to finish that 10-mile run, but finally landed up, I think we were 4th and 5th, my friend General Chaturvedi and me, because we did exceedingly well during the obstacle and the firing part of it.
Okay.
So the first glimpse of para which came to my mind was in the Indian Military Academy. We had certain excellent instructors out there, and we always used to be overawed with the maroon beret, you know, and some of them were from the special forces. And seeing that Balidan, one always thought, because Balidan is very akin to the Special Air Service of the UK Armed Forces. It's, if you just Google, you know, who dares wins, you'll find a similar symbol there also. Although ours is the Balidan, which is similar. It's a flaming dagger basically with the wings. So anyway, there were only 2 vacancies in the Indian Military Academy for the paras, and the first one went to the guy who got the Sword of Honor. And the second happened to be another close friend who probably they balance it out on the merit basis, and I probably couldn't fit that thing. So anyway, I was commissioned into the Brigade of the Guards, and it was a anti-tank unit, and we thought ourselves greater than the Armored Corps, who always used to, you know, have those crazy styles of Teda Berry and you know, all style. No, excellent force. I won't say that, but that's just in you know, humor. I spent my first 3 years with the Guards, and I got into a bit of trouble there because of probably a bit of bad discipline. And I thought that if I continue like this, probably my career in the armed forces would not last more than 5 years. So that is the time I thought, let me volunteer for one para. And I volunteered, and I was lucky enough to have got the call for the probation. And this was in 1986. So I remember 25th of November 1986, I reported at Nahan, which is in Himachal Pradesh, for my probation.
Okay, I see. So we can see where the motivation is coming from, and it's great to know that some, like you said, that you were not able to run that much, and somebody like that getting into special forces. So that's a great motivation, I would say.
Yeah, they say, you know, when you're stuck in a corner, you fight back and you try and give your best.
True. Yeah.
So one did that, and one had to get out of an atmosphere where one was feeling toxic. So that's why I left my first regiment, I would say, and volunteered for it. And then it was 3 months of really, really, really grueling and tough probation. And physically, I think human body has so much of resilience that it can accept a lot of pain. It can accept a lot of torture, but it's the mental thing which matters. And that is what the special forces look for. So if you see me, I'm probably half the size of, I'm not a 6-footer. I'm not a 48-inch chest or whatever it is. Very normal, simple guy who can hide in the crowds and who loves to hide in the crowds, you know, not be seen. So this itself is, I think it's taken me 17, 18 years after I retired that I'm coming on a platform like this.
Great. Okay. So as you said that, you know, there's a lot of mental torture and during this probation period. So should one start training himself to join para SM regiment before joining the academy? I mean, if yes, then how?
See, when one reaches the academy, I think one is at its individual is as its peak, because there's adequate amount of physical strain which is you know, imparted out there. It's more, like I was telling you, it's more the mental strength. So yes, try to push yourself, and you'll be surprised what your body can take. It's actually, it's you discover yourself on a daily basis. I still remember that I used to find running 10 kilometers a Herculean task. And I recollect that in one of the operations which we had in Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
we had to walk 65 kilometers in
God.
neck deep swamp continuously. We couldn't stop because had we stopped, somebody would have drowned in that.
Oh,
So
God.
that is what your mind can make you do. It's only that we don't test it, right?
Yeah.
We have
So if you're
those
mentally strong,
its inherent
Sorry,
fear
yeah,
is
go
that
ahead.
I'll not be able to do it,
Hmm.
right? So there's nothing what you people can't do. Don't ever put roadblocks in front of you, mental roadblocks, that you will not be able to do it. If you, I don't know, I like to share a few instances with you on how the probation used to be carried out. I'm not telling what is it now.
Yeah.
That's why I told you my information might be a bit archaic of what's the latest thing. But so one of the tests which was there during the probation used to be called, sorry to be using that term, a shit bit test,
Okay.
right? So you have sewers, right, where all the refuse goes.
Yeah.
So you were supposed to stand in that for 4 hours with your hands on your sides without moving.
Okay.
You would have, flies, those dirty flies coming and sitting on yourself, but you were not to make a sound and do that. And that was only to build up your mental strength. The aim being that if you did get stuck sometimes in the enemy territory or during operations where, you had to remain quiet and watch, you would be able to do it. That's besides that they give you a good shower after that and they give you, a good cold glass of beer, but that doesn't take away that what you have to go through. And it is only to build strength, right? You might not get into the situation ever, right? But if you do, your body will take it. If you tell your mind that I have to do it, it will take it. So bottom line on all these things is make yourself mentally strong. Don't ever think that you can't do a thing. You will have, setbacks in life. That is what life is about, right? It's not always hunky-dory, happy, partying and all that. Life is that when you go down, you have the resilience to get up again and start moving. I won't say running. I don't like running.
Absolutely. Now since you've told me a few instances, now I get to know why the result is just 10 to 15%. If you talk about the special forces, and I've read that many people drop out also in between. So
yeah,
is
Bhamini,
it because of the mental pressure, you would say?
It's both actually. You see, so when I say mentally strong, all of you would be knowing, you're all youngsters, you must be playing games and all, that it's very important that when you're competing somewhere, apart from your mental strength, which of course is a given that you need to have, you need to look after your body, right? So when you find, I'll tell you, in the batch that I was there, I was the only officer, but there were 18 other men who had volunteered and were undergoing the probation. And I think only 6 or 7 of us made it. Even I was a borderline case, let me tell you.
Okay.
The final test of the probation is a 40-kilometer route march, which you have to do with 22.5 kgs of load and your weapon. And the timing is that you have to complete it in 6 hours.
Okay.
So if you're doing it in, normal circumstances, when the weather is all right and all that, it's all right. I remember when I was doing it, we were at that time in the deserts. We had gone for exercise, and that's where my probation was also run, most of it. And I fainted after about 14 kilometers. I just fell flat running on the road.
Okay.
I don't know for how long I was out. So anyway, I was revived, and the temperatures were in the 40s. in the deserts. We were in Bikaner.
Yeah.
And so my probation officer asked me that, Andy, what do you want to do? Because I had cut my chin and bruised myself.
Yeah.
So once I regained my senses, after a couple of minutes, I told him I'll continue. And I continued and I completed it within the
time limit.
time limit. So it happens. That's see, time and again I'll be repeating this. Mental strength, not the physical.
Sure.
Physical, everybody can build up, right? You go to the gym, you go on a treadmill, go running, play games, you'll build it up. But
no, mental strength.
Do you have it here to do it? That's more important. So all special forces aspirants work on that. Don't take defeat. Just don't.
Yeah, if it's blocked here, then you cannot do anything. Yeah,
and that's not only for special forces. Let me tell you, that's in your life.
Yeah.
One hears sad that young people, 20, 25, or students committing suicides and all. It's not done. It's not done.
Not done.
Right? Yeah.
Okay, so coming on, like you mentioned about the Sri Lankan engagement, we would like to get some highlights of your career.
Okay, so I cleared my probation sometimes January of 87, right? And I don't know how many of you have read a bit of history on the Sri Lankan ops. The problem with Sri Lanka was already going on. I think sometimes in March or April, the Indian government dropped food packets over Jaffna, which was a Tamil controlled area, right, to help them. And the president of Sri Lanka was worried that, politically it is going to harm him. So he asked for protection. And there was a small detachment from our unit which went for the personal protection of the president of Sri Lanka.
Okay.
We were located at his palace, and the rest of the unit were on the coast of Sri Lanka in naval ships, and we as army honchos of, who were used to the olive greens, were all given Navy uniforms. So we were as part of the Navy. That continued till about May. And some political discussions were going on, of course. And then we came back. Things seemed to be normal. India did send a small force to Sri Lanka to help the Tamils. And I think something went wrong that the Tamils got against the Indian army. And so July we were again put on alert, and we were moved to a different location where we were training. And 14th of October, our unit set sail for Sri Lanka. We went in aircraft. Yeah, we landed up in Jaffna. So 14th October, our unit landed in Jaffna. There was another Special Forces unit. At that time, it used to be known as Para Commandos. That is the 10 Para, which was already there. They had reached about a couple of weeks earlier than us. And we were staying, all of us, at the Jaffna airfield, which is known as the Palali airfield. So mid-October 87 till January of 89, I carried out, along with my unit, operations in Sri Lanka. And the various districts, we were initially at Jaffna, then we moved to, where did we go? We moved to the hinterland, from there to Batticaloa, then the jungles of Ovunia. And I think,
so did you face any challenges during this engagement in Sri Lanka?
See, Sri Lanka initially was very, very tough. The orders were very funny. Orders were that bit of suspicion, you first kill and then you talk.
Oh.
And as special forces, we are not trained to do that, right? We're trained to be operating in small groups. We're trained to be taking decisions which are right and not, go merciless killing.
Yeah.
However, things were tough in the initial days. And my perception of ops, we did a lot of ops. We were practically out 5 days a week, whether for 2 days, then come back for a few hours or a day break, and then go back again for 3 to 4 days, then come back again. So we were always out on search missions. And I think the best insurgent force in the world was the LTTE whom we were fighting.
Oh.
They were so disciplined. They were so professional. And I think I don't know whether the Indian Army, I'm sure Indian Army would have learned a lot of lessons, but we as a unit learned a tremendous amount of stuff from our, adversaries.
I'm sure.
So lesson number 2, never think your adversary is weak, but learn the good points that they have and imbibe them either in your life or in your outfits.
Correct. Absolutely. Okay. So
difficulties, you were asking
go
about the
ahead.
difficulties I faced. It was on a very personal level.
Okay.
Like I told you, we reached Sri Lanka on 14th of October, right? My marriage was fixed for 25th of October.
Oh.
And we landed there, and so I conveyed to my parents that postpone the marriage.
Okay.
But you'll be surprised that on 19th of October, my commanding officer called me, Colonel Arjun Katoch, and he says, I have some work for you. He put me in his jeep. We were at the airfield itself. So Indian Airlines flights were, coming in, bringing troops, and they used to go back empty.
Okay.
So he put me in one of those flights to head back to Delhi. And I was in my fatigues, army fatigues. He told me, whatever little civilian clothes you have, just pack them. So I took a, gunny bag. I just put 2 pairs of clothes and a pair of shoes. And I was on that flight, the only passenger traveling from Jaffna to Delhi. And the Delhi airport, the security caught me. He says, where's your ticket? And I had no ticket. So while I was arguing with them, fortunately, the captain of the aircraft, after doing his security clearance, came from there. And then, of course, he got me out from there and got me dropped home. And I was back in the unit on 3rd of November. 25th was my wedding, 25th October, and 3rd November I was back. So I think that was the only problem I had, or a difficult time, but anyway, been happily married ever since, with a lovely wife and a lovely daughter.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm glad that you didn't have to postpone your marriage.
Yeah, because we don't realize, the parents have carried out so much of invitations have gone out.
Correct.
So yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to ask, what are the benefits of being in special forces?
Benefits? What kind of benefits would you like to know? The first benefit is that everybody in the army, irrespective, is envious of you. So you walk with your shoulders very broad.
Yeah.
Right? You do get paid additionally. So you have the special forces allowance, you have the para pay, right?
Yeah.
And the other benefit is people will not trouble you there for mundane things like it normally happens in the army. Your haircut is not all right. Why are you growing a beard? Why is your hair on shoulder length? Nobody tells you anything. Right? It's only on ceremonial occasions. I think I must have worn my regular uniform not even 1 year out of the 16 years that I spent out there.
They're
rest at all.
already pressurizing you enough that you don't need to bother about all these things. I'm
No, they
sorry I
don't pressurize
interrupted.
you.
Please go
It's
ahead. Yeah.
you'll be surprised that
Yeah.
see, there are very few special forces units.
Yeah.
When I was there were three,
Hmm.
1,
Okay.
9, and 10.
Hmm.
So 10 was mainly for the desert sector.
Desert. Yeah.
The 9 was for the
Hmm.
mountains, and 1
Hmm.
was for both desert mountains and special operations like anti-hijacking,
Hmm.
anti-terrorist ops.
Yeah.
Right? It's changed
Yeah.
now. It is most of us are now doing conventionally, of course, operate in very small groups of 4 to 5 people behind the enemy
Okay.
lines. When that
Mhm.
happens, in the peacetime, when there is no regular war, then we carry
Yeah.
out insurgency operations.
Yeah,
So there
that's
are
what I was about to ask. Like in peacetime, what do you do? Do you train or how do you go about it?
so yeah.
Yeah.
So life in the unit is not difficult in the sense
Hmm.
that firstly you have a lot of leeway. People
Yeah.
let you make decisions,
Hmm.
right? Normally you'll find in the Indian Army or in the infantry battalions or other battalions that
Hmm.
it's a very hierarchical structure. While the commanding officer is there in the special forces, but
Hmm.
he has told you that I need you fit for ops
Yeah.
24/7. If I
Hmm.
call you up at midnight and tell you you have to go, you should be ready for it, and so should your
Okay.
team.
Hmm. I see.
And the allocation of special forces is
Hmm.
like you will have a company being affiliated. A company is about say 120 people in the Indian Army
Hmm. Hmm.
infantry regiments.
Yeah.
It's about 80 to 90 people in the special forces.
Okay.
That is affiliated at a corps level. A corps
I
is
see.
3 divisions. That is
Hmm.
9 brigades.
Yeah.
That's roughly 27 infantry battalions. So you have
Okay.
a Major Saab
Hmm.
talking to a lieutenant general and
Hmm.
discussing operations with him.
I see.
So that is the level of confidence that is built up to you in the units so that you
Hmm.
can understand what the environment is like, and then you can advise a
Hmm.
gentleman of the level of a lieutenant general on the special
Hmm.
operations part,
Okay. I
right?
see.
And when you
Yeah.
wear your maroon berry,
Hmm.
well, you will have a lot of people falling for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. So just curious to know what special weapons and equipments are used by special forces.
See, firstly, there are certain tasks which are specific to the special forces,
Hmm.
like skydiving, which is combat free fall,
Hmm.
then underwater diving,
Okay.
and explosives.
Hmm.
So while we do have anti-tank missiles and others like that, as far as
Yeah.
weapons go, I think what the special forces are working now, they have a variety of weapons actually, because for different operations you require different weapons.
Hmm.
So you would probably have some of the best, close quarter battle weapons like the Israeli Tavor, which
Yeah.
is very, very compact and very, very effective. And for sniper rifles, we do have the SIG, which is, I think it's a Swedish weapon. And we have Dragnos, which are Russian.
Hmm.
Then you have underbarrel grenade launchers.
Okay.
Then you have anti-material rifles, which can penetrate through bunkers. The rounds can penetrate through the bunkers.
Okay.
So, yeah. And of course, we have the combat parachutes.
Hmm.
We have underwater diving equipment, which is both for deep diving as well as, subsurface diving. Both the air and the oxygen kind of equipment.
I see. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice to know that. Before I move on to the questions which I've received from some of our aspirants, I would like
Mhm.
you to give a brief history of the special forces.
I'll give you the history of my own unit, right? Special
Yeah,
forces have
sure.
done very well, and I told you till
Yeah.
about in the late 60s
Hmm.
is what the concept of commando units came in, right? And that time it was 9 para and 10 para who were commandos. Then 78, 1 para converted to the commando role with, special operations like I told you, anti-hijacking. Those were the roles at that time. History of 1 para, it's the oldest battalion of the Indian Army. 1757, right? We have changed our name, but we have never had a break in the organizational structure.
Okay.
So 1757, we fought a very famous gentleman by the name of Tipu Sultan. You people must have heard of him.
Yeah, we've read about it.
Yeah. Then we took part in number of wars. We were World War One, World War Two, and then of course the Indian wars that have taken place. We have, I think, almost 17 battle honors, both in Africa, in Europe, in India.
Yeah.
And of course, the latest, the chief gives a, commendation banner to the unit. We have ample amount of those. So our history actually is there's something known as a digest of service, which is a record of what happens in the unit on a day-to-day basis, and somebody is supposed to write down in his own hand so that the history of the unit is maintained. So we have the digest of service of 1 para written in beautiful calligraphy hand starting from 1757.
Okay, 1757.
Right? Yeah. So if some of you ever get a chance and you know somebody, you can probably visit the unit wherever it is located, somewhere in Himachal, and you'll be able to see, and you'll get to see all these artifacts. Then 1 para was instrumental in liberating Goa. We were almost the first ones to reach there to disarm the Portuguese. Then the liberation of Sikkim, 1 para was there. Of course, the 71 Ops. The famous, prior to that, the famous Haji Pir was captured by 1 para by late General Ranjit Dayal. We were the first ones to enter the Golden Temple when it happened. And we faced a lot of casualties out there. We had about 17 people killed. Then we have participated, of course, in the Sri Lankan operations, extensive insurgency operations across Northeast and in the valley. And of course, now I think the concentration is more, they have a special forces regiment which is dedicated to the east. So they look after the insurgency out there. And the rest of the battalions are mainly, deployed in the valley against insurgency and carrying out special operations there.
Very nice to know the history. I'm sure whatever I would have read, I wouldn't have got this much information from the sources.
I just hope I'm not leaking out something which I'm not supposed to.
I'm sure not. Okay, so coming on to the questions which we have received. This question is from Rahul Singh. How thrilling and challenging life of a para commando is? How is it different from the regular soldiers?
So like I told you, see, firstly, you're not bogged down by the normal activities of what a unit goes through, right? The reason being is that a normal infantry battalion runs into somewhere between 850 to 900 people to about 1,000, 1,100 people, depending on the constitution. A para-commando battalion is 600 people at the most, right? The people who look after the operational part is a very small number. So therefore, para-commandos firstly have to be self-sustained. That is what I'm talking of, the combat units of the para-commando, which is a squad, a troop, or a company. Now, you have firstly a lot of leeway. People will let you make decisions. They will let you commit mistakes if it is not, impacting a life. They will let you commit mistakes. They will help you grow and take decisions, which itself, I think, opens up your horizons at a much younger age
True,
on,
very true.
how to operate and take. Because nobody, if you're going out on a squad operation, which is 5 people, there's nobody coming to tell you that, look, you got to take this action or that action.
Yeah.
You have to do that all on your own. Whereas you'll never find that kind of a liberty in the other battalions.
In the other
So that is one. Secondly, like I told you, the uniform is very sexy. So you would see, just Google some of the Special Forces, Indian Special Forces uniforms. You'll find, their chests filled with, medals and ribbons and badges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You do get to operate a lot with the forces, special forces of the other countries. Not so much of an opportunity in the army as such, in the infantry and other. Yeah. And I think it's the pride which comes into you. Even when you're talking to your friends and colleagues and counterparts in the uniform, people look at you with awe. And that is what makes you, it shouldn't get into your head, but because performance is always noticed. But it's a different feeling altogether.
I'm sure. I'm sure there are a lot of reasons one should get into special forces.
Yeah, you see, if you don't want to be in a routine life, I'm not telling the infantry doesn't. The infantry does excellent job, I'm telling you. If you see the operations in Parakram and prior to that, in the Kargil, I think it was the infantry basically and the young officers who did it. So, but our roles are slightly different. So we don't
everyone is playing their part. Yeah.
Yeah. So our roles are more specified. So normally, say in insurgency operations, we'll be the ones who will be hitting the core, while the others might be in a more supporting role. Or if you have to do trans-border operations, so it'll be the special forces who will be the first ones to do that. Right? So, so it's great feeling from inside, which is what is different.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
And you get to jump from aircrafts and dive deep into lakes and seas and stuff like that.
It sounds very exciting. Yeah, it definitely answers. Though it sounds really exciting, this diving, everything. Though I have a phobia from the skydiving thing, but yeah, it sounds really exciting to me.
Yeah, that phobia remains throughout your life. I have done over 300 jumps, but every time you have to step out of the aircraft, that initial split second, the fear is always there. But once the wind hits you, then it's a lot of fun. You're with the birds and the nature.
Yeah, correct. Okay. So coming on to the next question, this is from Shubham Singh. Apart from good physical endurance, what are the other prime things that an aspirant should inculcate to join Para SF? When there are, so that's it.
So see, physical, I told you, physical is something you can build up. And it's not that when you enter the paras, day one, they are expecting you that, you'll be super fit. They give you time to build up. So that 3 months is adequate amount of, basic fitness has to be there. Right? And then they'll build it up.
Like you said, it's more about your mental thing, the mental ability of them.
Yeah. So firstly, don't think in a box, think out of the box. And you can practice that actually. You take any situation and try not to follow what the written path is and see how you can do that thing differently. So if you practice it right from this age, you will be surprised that you will get solutions and answers and opportunities which normal human beings who, think straight or boxed
Yeah.
will not
Hmm.
be able to get. Secondly,
This
read
is more.
about it. I think what motivates individuals most is
Hmm.
whatever literature is available, not only for the Indian paras forces. Read about the special forces of the world, what kind of
Hmm.
operations they have done, and that gives you the inherent motivation. Open
Hmm.
your mind, don't be under pressures, right? And always
It's
live with.
more, it's also about getting out of your comfort zone, I feel. Those special forces getting much more about out of your comfort zone. But
Uh,
yeah, so this,
it is there, but uh, for to achieve anything,
yeah,
I think you need to get out of your comfort zone,
yeah, I'm
right?
sure.
It's more
Yeah.
out of the box thinking. Don't
Hmm.
straitjacket yourself in thinking that this is the only thing, only possibility to solve a problem,
Hmm.
right? And if you practice it in your day-to-day lives,
Hmm.
you will be surprised that you will get so many more options that you can choose from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
end of the day, most
Hmm.
important, take decisions.
Hmm.
I think the bane of most of us is that we tend to procrastinate and delay and start
Hmm.
thinking of too many options,
Yeah.
and we don't end up taking a decision.
Good
I think the
decision.
one major thing what Special Forces has taught me is
Hmm.
take a decision. And you'll be surprised that after a period of time, you'll find that 99% or more, you'll be right.
Hmm.
Believe in your gut.
Hmm.
Don't leave everything to your mind and heart. They can
Yeah,
lead you wrong at times.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
This is something which is very important, I feel. And okay, so coming on to the next question, this is from Sajan Mehta. Which task you feel was the hardest in your probation course or training of Para SF?
See, things have changed now.
Hmm.
Because the training also keeps evolving with new kind of
Yeah.
weapons, with new kind of operations that people are getting into. So it keeps
Hmm.
evolving. So the hard thing is, see, it's not hard. Again, I tell you. So when you
Yeah.
say hard, that
Hmm.
means will your body be able to take that?
Hmm.
And like I've been
Yeah.
telling, if your mind can
Hmm.
take it, the body will take it.
Body will take
So
it. Yeah.
yeah, whatever it is. I never
Hmm.
dreamt in my life that I could, if you tell me now to walk 65 kilometers, I'll lie down on the bed
Yeah.
straight up. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it fell upon me, I knew there were 15 people whose lives were with me. I
Hmm.
did it. And they did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? They
True.
kept telling me
Correct.
number of times, कि साहब रुक
Hmm.
जाते हैं थोड़ी देर. And I
हाँ.
knew that if you stop and you don't get out of this,
Yeah.
we're going to have casualties.
True.
So, uh, physically, let me tell you, if somebody
Hmm.
wants to experiment, say you have run a maximum 40 kilometers marathon in your life,
Hmm.
just practice a bit, bring up your basic physical thing, and you decide that you will do 50 kilometers now, not 42.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised you'll be able to do that.
Sure. It's all about pushing your limits.
It's not, that's why I was telling you, body has so much of resilience that
Hmm.
it can take a lot of pain. We are not
Yeah.
aware of it
Yeah.
till
It's
we
all
expose
about
it.
training till we expose it. Correct. Thank you so much. Okay, so coming on to the next question, this is from Swastik Sharma. We
Mhm.
all know about the lethal para SF and how physically tough and challenging it is. How did you take on this challenge? What was your source of motivation when you were training?
I gave you that story, right? That I had
Yeah.
got into a bit of trouble because of my slightly lack of discipline. That lack of discipline
Mhm.
probably helped me in the special forces. So, yeah, motivation, like I told you, I came from a background of armed forces, and few of my close friends did give me a taste during my training days of what para
Mhm.
would be like.
Yeah.
And it's Okay, let me tell you. Let me try and put it in today's terms
Yeah.
of the generation of today.
Hmm.
Now, please don't take it that all of you or some of you think like that. But what I see normally is that the generation of today wants more materialistic things. They want more comforts. They want the best, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So that should not be the motivating factor. It's what can you give back to the society is what is more important. Now it could be in any field. It's not special forces. Everybody who's there wearing a uniform today is giving back to the society. Every doctor who's there today or a nurse is there, they're giving back more than I
They're
think
giving back.
we
Yeah.
ever would. So motivation it comes from within. What do you want to do? So if you decided that you want to join the army, then why not the best in the army? If you want a car, I would dream that why don't I have a Lamborghini, right? I might not be able to afford it. That's besides. But my dream is there.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling everybody's dream will be fulfilled that you decide and you will join the special forces. But why not aim for the best while you can?
Yeah, very well answered, sir. And I would say that this message should reach on to today's generation, that they're more into materialistic things, and they should actually think of other things and give back to the society as well, because this is the driving factor for today's, I guess, most of them.
It's not that. I think,
Yeah.
Bhamini, a lot of young people are doing excellent things today. I am going to be a senior citizen now, but I'm involved with one such organization, which is into, it's a not-for-profit, which does work for women's safety, child safety on the cyberspace.
Okay.
And they're all young people. Huh? They're all below 40 and stuff like that. And some of them who've just graduated from schools and colleges.
Yeah.
They're running helplines, a 22-year girl running a helpline for women in distress and stuff like that. So aim for all your material things. Nobody is stopping you. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But take out some time of yours during a day to give back to the society, give back to the people who require it more than we require it. Aim should always not be my fulfillment. It should be my fulfillment along with the fulfillment of somebody else. And then you see what satisfaction you get in life.
True. I'm sure. Okay, so moving on, this question is from Ashwin. Have you ever not felt the fear while doing any of your operations that are extremely dangerous and life-threatening?
See, the good part is that the army trains you for that. And they train you right from your academy days, both the NDA, OTA, the Indian Military Academy. And then while you go into the unit, they'll train you for that. And nobody leaves you on your own on day one. You might be new to the unit, but the people who are there under you, they have spent some time, they have the experience. Fear is good, let me tell you. Fear is always good because fear is what saves your life. So if somebody tells you that he's a macho guy and, Rambo, stuff like that, those kind of people don't survive very long in the army. So you have to overcome fear and take risks which are calculated. Because never forget that there are other lives which are co-joined with you in an operation. Right? I remember my first operation in Sri Lanka, and I was, budding special forces guy, first time getting operational experience in 1987.
Yeah.
And I had these 9 or 10 people along with me, and we were going out for some search and destroy operations.
Yeah.
And me, like a hero, was right in the front. Anyway, we did that operation, got a success, came back. And in the evening,
Hmm.
my commanding officer called me in the mess. He says, "Come and sit out here."
Yeah.
He says, "You're very brave." I told him, "Sir, what happened?" He says, "I heard that you were walking right in front."
Hmm.
So I told him, "Sir, officers are meant to lead."
Hmm.
He says, "What do you understand by this word lead?"
Yeah.
Officers are meant to lead means they're to ensure that with their brains and their thought process,
Yeah.
the people that have been given to you, those 9 people, you have to take them, do your operation, and get them back safe.
Yeah.
He says, next time I hear that you're walking right at the top or at the head, that'll be your last operation in this country. So,
I see.
so you have to be close enough,
Hmm.
and you have to ensure that it is your responsibility to get back.
Yeah.
Fear is always there, let me tell you.
Hmm.
And you'll realize that you'll overcome it. So, if, say, like you were telling, you were scared of jumping from an aircraft.
Jumping.
You are scared every time you do it. A normal guy will not jump out of it, right? You tell him to jump from 5 steps, he'll not jump.
Yeah.
Just you have to overcome it.
Overcome it. Yeah. I agree.
So the most
Okay.
difficult thing, I think, it's that on overcoming fear. I think my most difficult thing in overcoming fear was that's the first time that I, you know, shot somebody.
Okay.
In operations, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think first time when it happens, it's difficult for you to accept.
Yeah.
So it did take me a couple of days to get over that. But the good thing was that the unit support system was there, where people who were more experienced and who were elder and more senior, they explain to you exactly how life goes about.
Yeah.
And once you've understood that, I think you move ahead.
I'm sure. Okay. So moving on, the next question is, and the last I would say is from Nishanka. She said that why armed forces, they don't allow women in special forces?
Very good question. Let me tell you, I am a serious proponent of that.
Yeah.
And I think a country is not a country, our army is still not ready for it.
Yeah.
What is the problem? I would let me be blunt about it. I think it's the mindset. Women can do and will do each and everything that anybody in the special forces does. There's no harm about it. But don't forget that culturally, where we come from, our army is more a force, a rural workforce, right? People come from villages, bulk of it. 90% of them are from there.
Yeah.
So the mindset of somebody coming from there, where they find that the women, should be more domesticated, should not be going out. And let us be very, very clear about it. We have to change. But this change is not going to come so fast. So as far as the capabilities go, I say that the women can do anything that the men can do. Right? But Nishanka, you will have to wait for some time. I think the small steps are being taken. The permanent commission for the women is already through.
Yeah, it's already through.
Yeah. So you will, we'll see you, some of you, in supporting arms and stuff like that. But don't forget, say even if you're in one of the supporting arms, you do get posted to support the operations or the formations which are there on the borders and on the LC or the LAC. So you can contribute out there. But yes, coming to the special forces, I think it is going to take some time.
See, so
Sooner
it's
the
all
better,
about
but yeah. Go ahead.
All about broadening the mindset first, and then it will
It's
come.
not only broadening.
Yeah.
You see, a certain set of people within the armed forces might accept it. In fact,
Hmm.
but they have to see the challenges that they'll face when it comes down to the ground level.
I see. Yeah, that is also
Yeah.
a point which is very important to be considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So coming on, what advice you would like to give to the SF aspirants?
Good advice to the SF aspirants:
Yeah.
be yourself.
Hmm.
If you're really passionate about it, you will get it,
Yeah.
irrespective of whatever it is.
Hmm.
Right? So be passionate about it, and not only this, for anything in life that you want. If you want to achieve something, be passionate about it and go after it. Let me tell you, you might have a few stumbling blocks in the way, but you will get
Yeah.
it. Right?
Hmm.
Think out of the box,
Hmm.
live large,
Hmm.
be happy. Right? That's the only advice I can give you. And it's one of the best professions that you'll ever get to do. Money is good, life is good, right? People keep cribbing, but that's another good thing, that you keep cribbing, but you don't want to leave it also.
Hmm.
So,
True.
yeah. So aim for it, you will get it. If you're serious about it, you will get it.
Okay.
Guy like me
Thank you so.
who couldn't even, hated to run 100 meters.
Yeah.
If I could do it, I think anybody can.
Anybody can do it. Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. I personally have learned a lot from you. Thank you so much about your advice, your time, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Bhamini, and thank you all the participants. My good luck and good wishes to all of you. I hope most of you were really, really passionate about it. Once you join the forces, opt for it. Don't get stuck that you might not get it in the first go and then you forget about it. So if you're really passionate about it, go for it and you will get it. And be good, be safe, look after yourselves, and God bless you, all of you. Thank you so much.
Much.